What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat live on Cheesehead TV, everywhere that you guys do the internet. Coming to you the day after the Packers were officially eliminated from postseason contention with a loss to the Chicago Bears. The second year in a row, the Packers have been eliminated from the playoffs in Week 15. The Packers organization definitely at a crossroads in search of a new head coach, a new direction after ousting Dom Capers, Ted Thompson, Mike McCarthy. The only thing remaining from the last Super Bowl victory as far as figureheads, Mr. Aaron Rodgers, a quarterback who, as per usual in 2018, had a decent performance in Chicago, coming up short again and again in crunch time. Some blatantly bad throws in the fourth quarter. It's a script we've all gotten very used to in 2018. Going to need some turnaround in 2019, to say the least. Hello to everybody on the chat. Jessica starting us off with a very prevalent question. Why do we suck? I wouldn't say the Packers suck. I'd say they're kind of pedestrian, which may be worse, because if you suck, at least you're talking about top 5 pick probably. I don't think the Packers are going to hit that milestone, but they do have a chance to get into the top 10 if they continue to lose. Earlier today, Joe Philbin met with the media and was asked about Aaron Rodgers possibly playing these last 2 games, even though they don't mean anything. Joe kind of tap danced around it. He sure left the door open for the Packers to sit Rodgers for the last 2 games by saying that all of those people who are healthy should be available to play. Now, it doesn't take a genius to put together the fact that Aaron Rodgers talked about suffering a groin injury in the game yesterday. Philbin was asked if the groin injury could be, reason to shut Aaron down for these next 2 games. Again, kind of tap danced around it, but I think you don't have to be a genius to put 2 and 2 together. This will give the Packers the reason they need publicly to shut Rodgers down for the remainder of the season. That's not news. That's just me guessing, but that's where I think this is headed. Maybe we'll get a look at DeShone Kizer for these final 2 games. Vikes or Bears better? Oh, it's got to be the Bears. I think they have a much better defense. They have an offense that can turn it on, as it were. Obviously, the Vikings got back to basics against the Dolphins, but the Dolphins were a get-right game for the Packers, too, at home. It's not like that's saying much of anything. Have you seen what Leroy Butler had to say about Rodgers? If so, your thoughts on it? Yeah, Timmy, I retweeted it, and I said, speak on it, Leroy. And a lot of people attacked Butler because of his equating Trubisky and Rodgers, etc. But essentially what that tweet said to me was Butler saw what we all saw, or at least what some of us saw with open eyes, was that Rodgers didn't play very well, especially down the stretch, yet again. This is a guy you've made the face of your franchise, you've made a 4-year commitment to, made him the highest paid player in league history, and he's come up short again and again and again. I think in that tweet you saw Butler voicing a little bit of frustration, and that's not new, especially anyone who's watched this team throughout the season. We've seen week after week Rodgers come up short in the fourth quarter, a time when he used to kind of turn it on. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised by it, and I understood it. Favre for head coach. Nobody wants that, including Brett Favre. How concerned are you about the collarbone? Stephen, you're talking obviously about Rodgers' collarbone. Not very. I think this is much more about the knee being a lingering issue throughout the season. We've seen him falling away from throws. And if anything, it's funny because I remember last year when he came back for that Carolina game, he had a couple underthrows that probably should have been touchdowns. And everyone said, okay, the collarbone clearly still bothering him. Then he comes back this year and has some underthrows, and everyone's like, oh, collarbone, what if it's a lingering issue? And then yesterday he goes out and airmails like 3 passes where he overthrows everybody. So maybe he's compensating. Maybe he's learning, exactly what he needs to do with that collarbone. Maybe that's something he'll work on over the off season. Maybe he's just kind of off his axis, so to speak, in trying to learn where exactly his arm strength is as he gets older. But I don't really worry about it. I'm much more worried about his footwork and his fundamentals, which is something I would think any new coaching staff that comes in is going to have to work with him on. What are your thoughts on next year? Who stays, who goes, who, if anyone, gets added via free agency? Parker, it's way too early to know anything about who they might target in free agency until we know who the coach is and what kind of systems they'll be running on both sides of the ball. I know there are a lot of big ticket items coming up in free agency, namely Jadeveon Clowney is probably the headliner. But again, we've got a long way to go before we get to the point where we're guessing on those. What happened to Reggie Gilbert? Guy totally disappeared. Sosa actually thought he had one of his more active games yesterday. But as far as what has happened to him this year, I think he's a great cautionary tale about getting excited about a guy in the preseason as opposed to the regular season. The game's very, very different. And I know he flashed and showed a little promise last year in the 2 games he was able to play in down the stretch. But it's a big jump. It's a big jump to become a playmaker in the NFL. Clearly, he's not made that jump yet. I thought he was active yesterday, and I thought he at least contributed yesterday in ways that we haven't seen a lot this year. A lot of the times, I'm with you, he has disappeared. Will Philbin stay as offensive coordinator? Zook? Ben, I doubt it. Whoever gets hired will most likely clean house. Maybe they keep Mike Pettin on if it is an offensive coach, but I can't imagine Philbin and Zook staying around. Zook was very much a McCarthy hire. Lancaster, our lunch pail guy. Andrew, hey, I've said it all week, last week, been very impressed with his play. He's outplayed Montrevious Adams, who was a previous third-round pick. This is an undrafted guy who's come in and really earned his snaps, really made himself part of the rotation. They really needed him yesterday because Clark was out, and I thought he did a really good job. I think he's acquitted himself quite well. Do you think the Packers address the offensive line through the draft or free agency? Patrick, I think it'll probably be a bit of both, depending on what's available. They should have ample salary cap space, so they should be able to go after any free agents they see fit to. Philosophically, under Ted Thompson, they were very much a grow your own as far as when it came to the offensive line. Maybe that changes if they get a new coaching staff that wants to go a bit heavier, maybe more power along the offensive line. But if they stick to kind of what they have done over the last decade plus, I would think they would probably stick with the draft, and Gutekunst would kind of target those late round guys. Now, if what they consider a premier talent falls to them in the first round, or is there early in the first round, maybe they go that route. I don't think you can discount the need for offensive line help when you look at how it really kind of wrecked a lot of what they wanted to do on offense this season. There's no doubt that it needs to be upgraded. Graham, does he need a new scheme or is he done? Well, Andrew, I think he needs a working thumb to begin. Second of all, I think he can still be effective. I think he needs a quarterback who's going to trust him a little bit and to throw it to the numbers. I mean, yesterday is a perfect example of Rodgers finally kind of taking a shot in the end zone and throwing it behind his receiver. Now, yes, Graham should probably come down with that ball, but at the same time, the ball should also be out at least at his numbers, if not out in front of him. So, I do think he can still be effective. I don't think you're ever going to see a dynamo between the 20s. I'm interested to see if they end up bringing him back or eat the salary cap hit and cut him prior to that March bonus being due. Do we get compensation if Cole Madison never reports? Good question, Hillary. The league office has been kind of murky on that, and the Packers have not responded to any questions about it. I would believe so, but I've yet to get definitive word on that. Alex Light, 1-game suspension, DUI or other. Well, it's nothing that's been reported, and it's interesting that it's only 1 game. Usually it's at least 2, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see what's in the cards there. I'm sure the guys at PackersNews.com are hard at work at trying to figure out what it is, scouring the police reports, what have you. But as of now, he is suspended for this game upcoming here in New York, and then he's able to rejoin the team on December 24th. Let's head over to Twitter, see what's going on over there in the tweet machine. As Thomas starts us off with thoughts on Jackson's regression. I imagine you're talking about Josh Jackson. Not that he was playing lights out to start the season, but it seems as though he has gotten progressively worse throughout, and his frustration is palpable. Well, Thomas, I would agree that he's been frustrated. I think that's kind of been his body language, so to speak, although I always caution against playing body language police. I wouldn't say he's regressed. I think he's a rookie, and he's kind of playing like he's been playing since we saw him in camp. It's very up and down, very handsy, very problematic down the field. I think he's still got a bright future. I think he's got all the talent in the world. Clearly, he's got issues he needs to work on, but he's a rookie. He's a rookie cornerback, one of the toughest transitions to make in pro sports. So to go from college to the pros at that position. It's a big offseason for him. We'll see if Pettine sticks around, see if he can progress in this scheme, and or if another staff is brought in, how they want to utilize him. Maybe a look to safety if it's a whole new scheme. We'll see. But I wouldn't kick him to the curb or anything. He's got a lot of talent and a lot of promise. But he does obviously have things to work on, no doubt about it. Did Rodgers and Philbin know they had to get 2 scores to win at the end of the game? Sure didn't seem like it. Yeah, it was unfortunate. They finally did go hurry up a little bit, at least no huddle, if not hurry up, truly hurry up. But yeah, the idea being, I guess, we're going to score and then we're going to have to rely on a onside kick anyway. So, why go breakneck speed and give the Bears any time, I guess? I don't know. It was frustrating to watch, no doubt, but I think at that point, I'm not going to say that they had started mailing it in, but they certainly weren't putting the pedal to the metal. Typically at the end of the season, Mike McCarthy did exit interviews with all the players. With no head coach, what does the end of the season transition look like now? I actually asked a couple of people inside the building today if anything had been mentioned in this regard, and no one has heard a thing. So if Philbin is planning on doing exit interviews with the players in lieu of McCarthy, no one has been told yet. But I would be interested to find out how that process shakes out. I would think it would be a valuable exercise for all involved, including the players, but we'll see how Philbin handles it. What happened with Justin McCray to get replaced by Lucas Patrick, and how do you think he did? Most of the sacks came from the edge, but that's just one data point of several. Andy, I thought McCray didn't do anything in particular. I think they just really liked what they saw from Lucas Patrick in his start against Atlanta, and they wanted to see more. And they didn't see a big drop-off by inserting him there over McCray. I think McCray has been a little bit unjustifiably kind of ridiculed for some of his play. I don't think his play has been nearly as bad as a lot of people online are making it out to be. Clearly, they liked what they saw out of Patrick, and they wanted to give him another opportunity. And I thought for the most part, Patrick held up pretty well, considering the front he was going against is one of the better in the league. I put on Twitter earlier today, there was on the screen pass to Williams, he did a great job getting out in space on Roquan Smith. That's what you like to see from a guy getting his second start in the NFL. Felipe, I would like to see a defensive-minded coach next in Green Bay, maybe Vic Fangio or Rod Marinelli. I think Fangio is a possibility. I think Marinelli, that ship has sailed. If that was going to happen, it would have happened already. It kind of did, but I don't think Marinelli would be the answer. But I do think Fangio is a possibility, without question. Matt says, let's give a shout out to the D-line yesterday. They played their butts off and held up pretty well. Really promising group. I agree, Matt. I thought every one of those guys, in light of the fact that Kenny Clark wasn't there, obviously some holes, some bad plays, etc. I think that's to be expected. But for the most part, I agree with you. I thought they held up pretty damn well. Let's head back over to said live chat. Philbin seems like a really nice guy. Unfortunately, a nice guy with no fire in the belly isn't what this team needs right now. I agree, Stymie, but I would caution against, if saying whether or not he's fiery or not behind closed doors. We don't know how he's talking to the team. But I would tend to agree with your overall kind of read there. I think they do need someone to light a fire under their butts. And I question if Philbin is that guy. Nags, do you think Rodgers' struggles this year exposed us as a team? Maybe this is the kind of team we've always been, but Rodgers' play brought it into light. I think yes and no. I think there hasn't been any secret that Aaron Rodgers has been a great deodorant for a very long time. That said, I do think this team kind of fell apart, so to speak, as the year went on. You saw Gutekunst kind of move on from guys. Obviously, Mike McCarthy was fired. They weren't able to get over the hump, etc. There was a lack of adjustments and a lack of, basically killer instinct in the fourth quarter. They were in nearly every game so far, I guess you would say, except for that Washington game on the road. They just could not make the plays at the end of the game. I'm not so sure that exposes anything other than a team that just lacked playmakers in crunch time, including Aaron Rodgers. Kingsbury has already gone to USC. I keep seeing this, Jonathan. Yes, he has gone to USC, but as Jay Glazer reported on Sunday morning, NFL teams are looking at his contract to see if it's possible to get him out of it. during this hiring season. So while I think it's a long shot, I wouldn't take him completely off the table yet. How much of a factor is a prospective coach's incoming staff when being evaluated as a candidate? Ryan, it's something they definitely talk about. It's something that most guys in the interview will say, I've talked to so-and-so and such about being my coordinator for this and being my line coach and blah, blah, blah. It's not, I don't think, a make or break issue, and I doubt Murphy and Gutekunst would make it so, but it's definitely something that the Packers are going to want to know, and there's definitely information they're going to research. But yeah, it's something that will definitely be discussed in the interview process. Do you think Goody will make a run at Clowney? It's possible. They'll probably have the cap space to do so. The problem is that so will everyone else, and they'll probably have quite a bit more. And if there's some team out there that really wants to break the bank for him, I don't think the Packers can compete with that. Injuries aren't an excuse, but how much do you think it played a factor this season? Oh, it absolutely plays a factor. I think you're seeing the Rams really kind of catch it right now with the loss of Cooper Kupp. Their offense has been very, very different without him. And that's sometimes all it can take is one injury to a key piece of your personnel to all of a sudden throw off everything you're trying to do. Now, that said, you're right. It's not an excuse. There have been ample opportunities to make plays, and they have failed to do so on both sides of the ball at the worst possible times. And that said, I think Gutekunst kind of set this team up in a way that if all the frontline guys stayed healthy and performed up to their capabilities, they had a shot at making a run. Obviously, none of that happened. They lost Cobb for a long time. Geronimo Allison went down. That changed the whole dynamic on offense. They had problems along the offensive line, et cetera. So I think offensively especially, that has kind of messed with a lot of how they saw this season going. And when those two injuries struck at wide receiver, it really changed a lot of what they wanted to do. With all the injuries on defense, they've kept Rodgers in the offense in the game throughout the season. Pettine should stay. Matt Nagy had a very complimentary couple of lines on Pettine after the game yesterday. I agree, Aaron, myself, I agree I would keep Pettine around, but it's all going to be up to who they hire. And if the head coach is an offensive guy and thinks keeping Pettine around is a good idea, he'll do so. But he'll be most likely, I can't say for sure, but most likely be given the leeway to say, Pettine's under contract, you're more than welcome to bring him back. But if you have a guy in mind that you want to bring along, you're more than welcome to do so. Rodgers hasn't played well since Banky last cut his hair. Reverse Sampson, tell him to cut it. Mark, I'll tell him right after this broadcast. Aaron Jones has had an impressive second half of the season. Is he the running back of the future, though? George, I would say for the foreseeable future, yes. Now, the question will become, obviously, this knee injury popping up yesterday. Same knee that he hurt last year, and this is the thing that the Packers were worried about, is his ability to go the distance. And now you have to think there's a good possibility you get shut down for these last two games. Hard to think that the running back of the future is somebody you're going to count on to stay healthy for 16 games who simply can't do it. Now, it's only been 2 seasons. We'll see what next year brings, but I think there's no question they're going to keep leaning on both of those backs, Williams and Jones, and there's a possibility they go and look for one late in the draft again. Maybe free agency, although I doubt it. After the game, Rodgers says he'd like to see Cobb back next year. Aaron, that's true, he did. Of course, he said the same thing about Jared Cook. We all saw how that played out. So, we'll see. Are these Cobb's final 2 games in Green Bay, Eric? I would tend to think it's a good possibility. As someone just pointed out, though, Rodgers did go to bat for him publicly. Maybe he takes a reduced rate to stick around, although I would think he'd want to get out onto the open market and get one last bite at the apple, so to speak. We'll see. Get rid of Rodgers. Paid him way too much. Now can't build your team. Pusha T coming at us with the caveman dialogue here. They're not going to get rid of Rodgers. They paid him the going rate. They paid him what will undoubtedly be very manageable in the years to come as the salary cap goes up. It's already going up another $10 million next year, projected to. The NFL has announced. So they've got plenty of space, especially when the guys like Matthews, Cobb come off the books, possibly Graham, etc. They're going to have plenty of cap space. It's not a question of not being able to build their team. It's being able to build a team that's effective and is complemented with both free agency and the draft, as opposed to the last couple of years prior to Gutekunst coming on board, where it was all draft all the time. Has our secondary been improving? Seems they get worse and worse each season. George, if you haven't seen improvement in the secondary this season over the last few years, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. I don't know what you've been watching. Have there been breakdowns? Have there been issues? Sure, but they've found some talent there. They've got some talent in some of those young secondary players, whether it's Jair Alexander, Josh Jackson has been up and down, as we mentioned earlier, but Pleasant has been a pleasant surprise. Tony Brown has shown flashes. So overall, there's going to be issues when you got guys in and out every game and up and down every week with injury, etc. But Sean Breland has shown a lot of promise. I can't get back on that with you saying they haven't gotten better. I think they're much improved this year as opposed to like the last couple years. Cut Perry, take the dead cap hit for 1 year. I don't know, man. I doubt they do it. I think it'll be one more year until they cut bait on Perry. I think they'll bring him back next year. Now, maybe they don't. Maybe they do cut him this year, but that's a pretty significant cap hit if they do. I think it's like $11, $12 million. I'd be surprised if they went that way this offseason. Hey, good sir, I just found your channel and subscribed. David, thank you very much. Do you think Mason Crosby will get cut? I don't, but I do think it's a possibility. I think they'll have him around for one more year. His cap hit is significant, especially comparative to other kickers in the league. However, you've seen over the course of the month of December in particular, since it's gotten cold, you've seen his value. Yes, he's missed some kicks. Yes, the Detroit game was a debacle. He's gotten a little bit more erratic, so to speak, these last, I think 20 games or so of his career. But look, a guy who can hit some of these kicks in the cold, dead on like he has been, is pretty invaluable when you're kicking, a bunch of games in December in Lambeau Field and or Soldier Field, as it was yesterday. That's a tough thing to do, and that's a tough thing to do consistently. And Crosby has shown that he does that. Again, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they bring him back, but I think they do. That would be my guess sitting here December 17th, whatever it is, 2018. Kevin King has a huge year ahead of him moving forward with the Packers. Ryan, I remember a lot of people saying that last offseason. We'll see. Obviously, the thing with King is he has to stay on the field. He has to stay healthy. If he can do that, he's got all the talent, got all the prospect possibility in the world. But 2 years in a row, he's ended the season on injured reserve. He's got to stay on the field. Stanley, thank you for the kind words. Do you think the Rams offensive coordinator could be a good head coach candidate? Stanley, I do. Zach Taylor, I think, fits the mold of what they should be looking at. Young offensive mind who could come in and revitalize the offense, kind of get Rodgers going again, so to speak. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that that's the way they go, even that type of coach, but I do think he's somebody they'll most likely make a call to. Why is it every year I see our defensive tackle like they're rubbed with butter? You mean they're like slippery? I don't get it. Do we take 2 players in the first round or try to move up the top 5 pick? Oh, Mark, still some things to play out as far as if they lose these next 2 games, their draft position probably increases. I doubt they package those picks up for a top 5 pick. To get up in the top 5, take a lot of ammunition, probably more than those 2 picks. And I can't see Gutekunst, at least the limited sample size we have to work with, nothing I've seen would suggest that he's going to be that aggressive. Now, all it takes is him falling in love with one player who he thinks could be a franchise-altering prospect for him to make that kind of move. But that is down to his evaluation, obviously, and there's no way to know who that might be. How about the Le'Veon Bell play? A running back one? No, they're not trading. If you're talking about signing Le'Veon Bell in the offseason if he's a free agent, I'd be absolutely shocked if they went that route. Is it better for the organization to finish strong and play good football? Everyone wants to play their best. Guys are fighting for jobs, for contracts, for bonuses, etc. Now, who knows what they do as far as lineup and who they choose to play? But everyone in that building wants to go out there and win those last 2 games. I mean, that's everything else is academic. Pusha T says Rodgers is on the decline. We'll see, won't we? Remember, everyone was saying the same thing about Brett Favre, and then Mike McCarthy came in, turned him around, and he had some of the best years he's ever had. We'll see. We should cut Brian Bulaga. He can be a good backup if we find a starting right tackle. We only have a year left. Let him ride it out. Well, why should we cut Brian Bulaga? Well, probably because of the cap hit and because he's not giving you what he used to give you to make it worth it. Now, I see what you're saying there as far as go one more year. Let him be a backup, though? I don't know about that. I don't know how that would sit with Brian. Now, maybe you bring somebody in and make him compete for his job, maybe that. But then why are you paying him all the money if you're making him compete? I think there's a good possibility they cut Bulaga if they think they can move on and improve at the position. But that's a tall task. Although this season was probably one of his poorest as far as his play on the field in quite some time. Is Aaron Jones mostly done for the season? Jonathan, probably. I'd be surprised if they threw him out there these last 2 games with a knee injury. I would think it'd be the Jamal Williams show for the next 2 weeks. Do you think Donnerson deserves some playing time? I'd love to see him out there. I mean, obviously he was inactive yesterday. But yeah, you always want to see what those draft picks can do. Oh, no. Rodgers is bored. He's so cerebral, it's all too easy now. Please. Josh Jackson to safety. He is amazing at zone. It's a possibility. We'll have to find out if what kind of system they're running and where they think he fits into it. Yeah, that's the big question mark. Do I think he can make the transition? Yeah, probably. But we'll see. We'll see how they feel about it. Best solution is to restructure Rodgers' contract to get more talents. Just my opinion. I understand the thinking there, but that's not going to happen, especially 1 year after they just signed him to a new deal. That's not going to happen. Do you think Devontae is a top 10 or top 5 wide receiver in the NFL? Yes. Sorry, I should have done that there. Oh well. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm going to have to jump. Thank you so much for all the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Thanks for coming at me on Twitter, on the chat, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere. Wherever you guys are, that's where we try to be. If you like what we do, a lot of people talking about just finding our channel, subscribing. Thank you so much. If you want to support what we do here at Cheesehead TV, you can join our Patreon. We're giving away t-shirts every week. It's a fun time. Packer transplants every Wednesday. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.